Are you struggling with thinning or hair that is just falling out, or maybe it's not growing back as thick and lush as it used to? Perhaps it's, something that happened after you had a baby. Perhaps it's just something that you've noticed as you've aged that your hair has gotten thinner over time and maybe even lacks luster, but maybe not. Sometimes I see where people are complaining that their hair is just thinning, like the amount that's coming in, but it's just as pretty as it used to be. So if this is something you're struggling with, I want you to hang on a minute because anytime I hear a girlfriend mention this casually in passing, I have a lot of thoughts and a lot of things that come to mind and stuff that I want to help them dive into. So let's do that today. If you're new here, I'm Rita Johnson. I am the owner of Divine Mercy Nutritional Care, and here we help with things like fatigue or gut problems, cycle issues. If you're looking for answers for any of those things or something slightly related to that, you're in the right place. So let's talk about hair loss and what could be the culprit here. A lot of times we will, especially because marketing has been so effective with this, we'll take things like a biotin supplement or something that perhaps even now what I'm seeing more is a probiotic, which is on the right track. Definitely when I'm thinking about things like hair loss, but let's kind of talk about what this is telling us is going on in our body and how we need to support it. Because I'm really big on we need to figure out what these signs are telling us, these symptoms are really telling us where the imbalance is and where we need to spend some additional time with support. We don't need to do everything perfect all the time. And that's something that I'm very passionate about because I don't have time to do everything perfectly all the time. And I know you don't either. So we just need to know what are our non-negotiables. I know what my non-negotiables are. So even if I'm in a crazy busy season, I can just pare down and be really intentional and be sure that those things are not the things that are overlooked in my life. So with hair thinning, the first thing I'm thinking is definitely about, these transitional periods. So it's natural for us in the postpartum time to have a large amount of hair loss. And so it's very common to have thinning hair at that time. It should get better. We should get to this point where it levels back out. Part of the reason that hair loss happens so much in postpartum is because during pregnancy, we're not shedding as much hair. And so in the postpartum time, we start to shed a lot of hair because it's all the hair we would have shedded had we been shedding hair regularly, and then some. Right. So that might be part of the problem. Now, if you're noticing that it's visibly different after you go through that postpartum hair shedding, that might be a sign that we really need to dive into more of what our body's telling us. Another time that I see a large amount of hair loss is through perimenopause. As we're going through perimenopause or into menopause, we see a lot of hair loss as well. So in this time, our body is remodeling itself from working under a high level of hormones, which we're doing in our 20s and 30s and even some of our 40s, to transitioning to lower level hormonal output, which is where we'll land in menopause. And so perimenopause is kind of like that transitional period, right? So I like to picture it as, stepping down off that ladder. Where we're going to land is going to be different. And so there are going to be differences, but it doesn't mean we can't support our body and be strong through that transition time, just like postpartum. Now, you may be saying, okay, I'm dealing with hair loss and I'm not in either of those situations, or maybe you're postmenopausal by a long shot. Regardless of that, there may have been a catalyst or there may not be. And here's where we kind of get into some of those things we need to look at supporting if this is what you're dealing with. So the first thing I'm thinking about is what's going on with your gut health. Anytime we have mineral imbalances or deficiencies, which is what they're after when they're marketing us things like a biotin supplement, they're trying to give us more to help our body be able to break it down. But in reality, a lot of the supplements and nutrients we need should be extracted through our food if we're eating a nutrient dense whole foods diet. Now, even if we're not doing this perfectly all of the time, it should be enough, okay? Unless your body is not metabolizing and breaking your food down well. Then we're going to have deficiencies, even if we're eating the most perfect nutrient dense foods 100% of the time. So that may be part of the problem. It may be an absorption issue. It may also be a microbiome imbalance. This is where a lot of times when I'm working with somebody that is dealing with hair loss, and a lot of times it's not the main symptom, they might also have some other GI issues or hormonal imbalance symptoms that are speaking much louder to them. I always ask people, what are your three biggest, and when I say that, I'm meaning your loudest symptoms you want support with? I just find that hair loss isn't usually one of those, but there's this beautiful support that happens when we really work on rebalancing the gut microbiome and supporting the function of digestion. That hair regrowth is so high that one time I had a client who did a GI map protocol, and she went to her hairdresser and she was getting her hair cut, and her hairdresser was like, I cannot believe all the baby hairs that you have coming out in your scalp. And she's like, can I take a picture? And so she took a picture, and my client was telling her all about what she's done with me. And she was like, you just need to tell everyone that Rita is hairdresser approved, which I absolutely loved. But personally, I had this happen with my 14-year-old daughter too. She did a GI map protocol, and at the end of it, she had so many baby hairs. And this girl has such thick, lush hair. I cannot believe it still. But she basically has bangs now because she had so much new hair growth that it's a couple inches long now that she finished that protocol a couple months ago. So really, we need to deep dive into your gut health. We need to look at your mineral balance, and this may be looking at it through the angle of, is there more support needed for your digestion so you can break those foods down, or is there an imbalance going on? And then, of course, stress. Stress is huge with hair loss as well, as I'm sure you know. If you're listening to this, yes, I'm struggling with hair loss. You know that under times of acute stress that you're losing even more hair. And so that's something else that we really need to take into account as well, is how are you handling your stress? I like to think of stress as a bit more of a bucket. We can poke more holes into the bucket. So as the water goes in from the top, which is our life stressors that we can't get rid of, if we just put more holes in that bucket, it's going to allow for that to flow through better with less physical implications to how we're feeling and what we're dealing with. So we might need to just poke more holes in your bucket. And that's really individual and specific, but something that there's a lot we can do there. If you're interested on that, I have a whole series on stress and the stress bucket. So go back. I believe I did those a couple of years ago. Go back on the channel and find those as well. So these are just some of the things I'm thinking of when somebody's struggling with hair loss. There's a lot we can do to support you through it. It is a symptom that we need to support your body, and that's what I want you to always remember. Anytime you're dealing with something, whether it's something that just feels annoying for you, or it almost even just feels like this vain symptom, that's a sign that your body is talking to you, and we want to figure out what it's saying and listen to it from there. If you like content like this, please like and subscribe for more content from me.